A responsible 19-year-old student from Kansas City, Missouri, was enjoying his sophomore year of college and working at a local radio station. Tall and lanky with red hair and freckles, he earned the on-air nickname Opie. In November of 2006, he traveled with a group of students to Chicago for an academic conference and was never heard from again. What could have possibly caused this grounded Midwestern teen to disappear without a trace? This is the case of Jesse Ross. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 25 of Crime Cave. I'm Christy, and there's a general consensus, I think, that a parent's worst nightmare is the death of a child. But for the parents of Jesse Ross, there's a worse nightmare than that. When you have absolutely no idea what happened to your child. One of the things I try to do regularly for my episodes is search for the victims' obituaries, so I can get a little bit better sense of who they were. But there isn't one for Jesse because they don't know if he's passed on. His mom, Donna, said, "When you lose someone you love, you grieve and you move on. But we are nowhere. We're still stuck in that revolving door." It's been almost 18 years since he disappeared, and the family knows nothing more now than they did that very first day. So I wanted to bring attention to this case, touch on some of the theories, and maybe even reach someone out there that has even the smallest bit of information that can give his family some answers. So let's get to know Jesse Ross. Jesse Warren Ross was born on February 18, 1987, to parents Don and Donna Ross. He had one brother named Andy, who was 3 years older. The family resided in a very family-friendly neighborhood in Belton, Missouri, which was a suburb of Kansas City. Jesse was described as a fun-loving adventurer with big dreams. His dad would refer to him as a little pill, who would sometimes get himself into a spot and then couldn't understand why he was in that spot. But he always seemed to learn his lesson. During one parents' night when Jesse was in elementary school, his mom and dad were surprised when his teacher said he wasn't working like he needed to. But according to his parents, he only brought home A's and B's. The teacher then showed them his little desk, which was crammed with papers. Apparently, if he didn't get an A or a B on it, he'd wad it up, jam it into his desk, and just didn't bring it home. His father, Don, would later say, he wasn't bad, he was just prone to bad judgment every once in a while. That Jesse knew where the lines were drawn, but they were a little bit broader for him, so he might push just a little beyond that. Both Jesse and his brother Andy had part-time jobs at the local movie theater and enjoyed the job perk of getting free showings of the newest releases. Jesse had developed a love for music and began getting involved with a local band called A Dead Giveaway, where he would help them promote upcoming gigs. Like most teenagers in the early 2000s, Jesse accumulated a lot of CDs, but he also had a talent for mixing music and had aspirations of becoming a DJ. He initially wanted to go to Kansas University, but ultimately enrolled in the University of Missouri, Kansas City, a half-hour north of home, and majored in communications. He was about to pledge a fraternity and had landed an internship at a local radio station, 95.7 The Vibe, on a popular morning show. Given Jesse's red hair and freckles, he was known to Kansas City listeners as Opie Cunningham. They had developed a segment called Where's Opie, in which Jesse would conduct interviews throughout the city, and people were encouraged to call in and guess where he was. Jesse was so well-liked that he had been promoted from intern to a paid on-air personality, which brought him one step farther on his career path. As well as majoring in communications, Jesse was also working on a minor in political science. In November of 2006, Jesse and fellow student Ralph Parker, who also attended the same high school as Jesse, were interested in attending an upcoming Model UN conference in Chicago. It was a simulation of the United Nations where 1,200 university students from across the U.S. would take on the roles of different countries and work to debate and resolve issues. Jesse and Ralph had asked to be on the Historical Security Council and decided to room together on the trip, which would take place during their fall break, and the students were scheduled to return home 2 days before Thanksgiving. On Saturday, November 18th, Jesse woke his dad up at about 5 a.m. The two packed the car and made the 30-minute drive to the university to meet up with the rest of the group. While Don Ross drove his son to the school, he was still tired during that pre-dawn November morning. But Jesse was chatty and excited. This would be his second year going to the conference, and he was looking forward to it. He would enthusiastically twist the knob on the radio, let a song play through, and then change it again, saying, "Dad, you gotta listen to this one. You're gonna like this one." The UMKC group consisted of 12 undergrad students, 1 grad student, and 1 chaperone, law professor Derek Moorhead. The group traveled in 2 vans over 500 miles to Chicago. Jesse had brought along some of his mix CDs in case they had some free time during the conference and wanted to try to drop them off at different radio stations to plant some seeds for future opportunities. During the long drive, Jesse sat towards the front of the van just behind Derek, where he chatted with the professor, and the group also listened to Jesse's CDs on the way. Upon their arrival in Chicago, they checked into the 4 Points Hotel, which is a Sheraton satellite hotel, about a 10-minute walk from the Sheraton Conference Center where the UN event was being held. Once they were situated, the group walked over to the event and jumped into the simulated meetings and sessions. On Monday, November 20th, day 3 of the conference, there was a scheduled free afternoon for the students to explore the city from 1 to 6 p.m. Jesse also made a call to his mom while she was at work, just to let her know that he was having a blast, and promised to call the next day when they loaded the vans for the 10-hour drive home. Donna would later say that he was that kind of son. He would always let his mom know where he was, what he was doing, and when to expect him home. Sessions resumed at 6 p.m. for another couple hours, and a dance party was planned at the Sheraton for the participants later that evening. But before that, Jesse and some of the other students hung out in one of the hotel rooms. At 12:43 a.m., Jesse is seen on video footage leaving the 4 Points Hotel to head to the party. Several photos were snapped of Jesse and his friends dancing and having a good time. About 20 minutes later, Jesse left the party to hang out with friends in a different hotel room. But his night wasn't quite over. In order to provide the students with as much real-world experience as possible, the agenda included a mock emergency meeting that was to take place at 2 a.m. Video footage captured Jesse walking back to the conference hotel for the meeting. But at roughly 2:30 a.m. during a break, he walked outside via a back door to get some air. On the morning of Tuesday, November 21st, chaperone Derek Moorhead was preparing to get his group checked out of the hotel by noon and head over to the conference center for one brief final session. But Jesse's roommate, Ralph, had let him know that he didn't think Jesse made it back to their room last night. He said that when he went up to bed, he thought Jesse was there, but realized in the morning that it was only a lump of clothes and his other belongings on the bed. Derek instructed Ralph to let the other students know to fan out and find Jesse. By 1:30 p.m., well past their checkout time, Derek reported the situation to hotel security. By 2:30 p.m., Ralph and the rest of the students approached Derek and said, "Look, nobody has seen him." That's when Derek went to Chicago police. He sent the rest of the students home in the vans, while he stayed behind to continue searching. Donna and Don Ross were expecting a call from Chicago from their son, but instead received the call from his chaperone. Derek stood at the entrance of the hotel as he spoke to Jesse's father. He said, "Mr. Ross, my name is Derek Moorhead, and I'm with UMKC. I'm here in Chicago, and I can't find Jesse." Don and Donna tried to process that news and prepared for a follow-up call within the hour. And Don felt a sudden need to clean out Jesse's car, tossing out old Coke bottles and hamburger wrappers so it would be ready for his son when he got home. Meanwhile, in Chicago, Derek was well aware that the next 12 to 24 hours were crucial. As the Chicago PD were reviewing surveillance video, Derek took it upon himself to walk every route to and from the hotel, looking in dumpsters. He wondered, Was he mugged? Was he injured and propped up against something? Derek searched behind every pillar, in every parking garage and construction area. Although he was aware of the dance party the night before, Jesse and the other UMKC students had told him that they weren't interested in going and were going back to their rooms. But that's when Derek learned that his group did go to the dance and also did some drinking in rooms before and after the party, before heading to the meeting at 2 a.m. Another student would say that although Jesse's eyes appeared to be a little glassy and his speech was slightly slurred, he was coherent and competent and didn't seem intoxicated. He said he just needed to get some air during the scheduled break. The Sheraton Conference Hotel was a heavily traveled area covered by outdoor security cameras. And although Jesse was seen walking into the Sheraton for the 2 a.m. meeting, not a single camera captured him leaving. He exited through an obscure side door, which happened to be in a sliver of darkness, not within any camera's view. The following morning at 7:30 a.m. on Wednesday, November 22nd, Derek was interviewed a second time by investigators, and dive teams had arrived to search the Chicago River. Although that river was the scene of many a suicide, investigators stated that they almost always found the bodies within 5 feet of the entry point. Not only did they not find Jesse, there was no trace of his cell phone, wallet, clothing, or any of his other belongings. Back in Belton, Missouri, the graduate student that had gone on the trip was tasked with dropping off Jesse's suitcase to his parents, and as any loving mom would, she proceeded to wash his clothes and put them away. Knowing that Jesse's parents were about to drive up, and without anything else to offer, Derek reluctantly flew home that night, just before Thanksgiving. But unfortunately, a sudden severe blizzard prevented Don and Donna from traveling to Chicago until December 10th, resulting in them waiting 19 agonizing days before they could go up. For detectives, this was a very unusual situation. Here they had a missing person that was surrounded by 1,200 potential witnesses, but by the time the search began, hotel rooms were cleaned out, things were thrown away, and all of the potential witnesses went home to different states. Without knowing who was critical to the investigation and who wasn't, where do they begin? When the weather finally cleared and Jesse's parents were able to make the trip to Chicago, they brought along their church deacon, Ken Elbers, for support. They walked along every inch of the Magnificent Mile, and also homeless encampments, handing out flyers and offering money to pay for food in order to get people to spread the word about their son. While Jesse's parents were still in Chicago, a body had been found in the Chicago River, but it was eventually determined to be someone other than Jesse. It was a young man who had committed suicide. Jesse's parents were going through a roller coaster of emotions during that trip. Add to that the fact that it was the holiday season and the city was flooded with travelers, joyously shopping and getting in the Christmas spirit, with the lobby of their hotel filled with kids laughing. His parents would later say it was such a surreal time because it was a stark reminder that life would go on even though their world had stopped. During their trip, they were so sure that they would find out something, but it was finally time to go home, and still without Jesse. In 2007, a year after their son had disappeared, the family enlisted the help of a private investigator named Peter Duffy, and the parents created a website called FindJesseRoss.com, which is still active today. I wish I could tell you that there was some resolution to this case, but we're heading into the 18th year of his disappearance, and still no answers. So I'm going to go through some of the theories, and we'll see what you think. The popular theory amongst investigators is that Jesse ended up in the Chicago River, either by slipping on some ice that was on the outer edge, or accidentally toppling in after drinking a little bit, or that he purposely jumped in to commit suicide. First off, Jesse's family is absolutely adamant that he would never have taken his own life. By all appearances, everything in his life was going according to plan, and his promotion at the radio station was going to take effect in about a month. But what I can't ignore is the fact that zero evidence was found in that river. It had been searched several times. Even if his body had gotten through the locks and ended up in Lake Michigan, you would think that there would at least be some remnants of his personal belongings. Not only did he likely have his cell phone and his wallet on him, but he reportedly also had his mix CDs with him, none of which were found in the water. Which brings us to theory number 2. There's speculation that Jesse wanted to go downtown to the radio stations to drop off CDs. Was this one of the times where he exercised bad judgment and thought he could handle roaming around an incredibly dangerous city in the middle of the night? Theory number 3. Was he attacked the minute he exited the hotel and just happened to be in an area that was not caught on video? But if so, where was his body? Was he transported in a trunk out of the area? Is there someone out there that knows something and might come forward 2 decades later? Now, I lived in Chicago for 10 years, and I feel completely confident saying that it is one of the most dangerous cities out there. Even though the Sheraton Hotel downtown was in the Streeterville area, which is known to be a slightly nicer area, crime can happen absolutely anywhere in that city. So I can't help but think that maybe his innocence and friendliness and excitement of being there possibly got him into a situation that he just couldn't get out of. And finally, theory number 4, that Jesse purposely walked away to start a new life. This is the least likely of the theories. Also, there's been absolutely no activity on Jesse's bank card or cell phone since his disappearance. It's unimaginable to me to think about what Jesse's parents, his brother, and his extended family have had to deal with these last 2 decades. From watching the interviews, I get the sense that they're a sweet, modest Midwestern couple who've done their best to cope. I wanted to share this bit of audio that may provide a glimpse into the innocence of their family life.
I taught him how to drive stick shift. He didn't know how. We did a little driving around and stuff several times. I took him one time, and we're coming around the corner. There's an intersection and a red light. And Jesse's not slowing down. And I said, "Slow down, Jesse." And he didn't do anything. I said, "Jesse, slow down." He didn't do anything. I said, "Slow down," really loud. And suddenly he hit the brake and stuff, and we stopped. I think he just froze up. "You're not going to tell Mom, are you?" I said, "No, I'm not going to tell Mom." I said, "Don't ever do that again." I always wonder if that couldn't have been a reason that he had problems, because he got a little overconfident in the big city and thought he knew what he was doing.
If you or anyone you know has any information about the disappearance of Jesse Ross, please contact the Chicago Police Department at 312-744-8266 or reach out to findjesseross.com. And now for today's listener question. Okay, today's question is from Casey, and she wants to know, do I take listener suggestions when it comes to what cases I cover? Yes, absolutely. I welcome suggestions, and you can get a hold of me a few different ways. On the Crime Cave Podcast Facebook page, on Instagram, or leave a comment on the Crime Cave Podcast YouTube channel, and I will add the case to my list. Thanks, Casey.
Hey, everybody, it's Ray the Roadie.
And this is Hollywood Mike
With the Rock and Roll Chicago Podcast, coming to you from the Illinois Rock and Roll Museum on Route 66 in Joliet, Illinois.
where once a week we are interviewing local musicians and singer-songwriters. And the podcast itself covers a wide range of topics, including, but not limited to, the history of rock and roll in Chicago, the current state of the scene, and the challenges and opportunities facing musicians today.
So join us every Tuesday for a new exciting episode of the Rock and Roll Chicago Podcast.
Thanks for joining me. This episode of Crime Cave has been brought to you by Fortress Defense Consultants, providing security consulting for educational institutions, corporate facilities, and houses of worship, as well as pepper spray, situational awareness, and defensive firearms training for police and private citizens. Find Fortress on the web at fortressdefense.com. Contact Fortress directly at 708-522-8060 or email them at info@fortressdefense.com. Avoid being the subject of a future episode of Crime Cave. Train with Fortress today. Until next time.